Siege is a very hard game to get better at, which is why in today's video I'll be going over the advice that I have for every single rank in Rainbow Six Siege. First, let's start out with the lowest rank in the game, which is Copper. For my Copper players, honestly, the best advice that I can give you is just play the game more. The reason you're in Copper 9 times out of 10 is just because you're new to the game and you don't have the hours enough to be able to win certain games. So if you just put the hours in, I guarantee you, you will be able to learn and just get better. People who are in Copper are pretty much bottom of the barrel when it comes to skill, no offense. You don't really have all of the operators quite unlocked yet. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn. There's a lot of maps you have to learn. You have to learn every single operator, what counters every single operator, default site setups, default attacks, things of that nature. So you have to just play the game in order to learn these things. No amount of guides, warm-up routines, aim trainers, or anything of the sort will help you if you don't know what you're doing. You have to know exactly where to push every single time you're an attacker with exactly what operator. You need to know exactly which sites you need to go first, how to set up every single site, which operators to play on certain sites, which operators are good, which operators are bad, how to use all of the operator utility, how to use all the secondary utility, how to use drones, when to use cameras, all the interactions between different abilities. Like, there's just so much that you have to learn. So my best advice that I could give to literally any Copper player out there is just play the game more, because the best way to learn is just to play the game. But if you want to learn one thing that you can learn pretty quickly instead of just playing the game, then I'll give you a piece of advice for that too, which is just going into the operator selection and going into operator guides. Whenever you're loading into the game, or when you're in the actual operator selection screen in the main menu, you can look at actual operator guides to see exactly how Ubisoft intends for you to use that operator. These videos will show you things of like how Sledge uses a sledgehammer, right? What buttons you need to press. It'll show you how OSA shields work, how a smoke canister works, things of that nature. So you can learn pretty much every single operator that you have unlocked by just using these operator guides. But again, the best piece of advice that I can give you is just to play the game more. But once you have a bunch of hours on the game, then you're probably in the next rank, which is Bronze. And my best advice for anybody that is in Bronze is that this is where you want to start to build map knowledge. Map knowledge is the keystone that builds positioning, which is one of the most important fundamental things that you need to learn as a player that I will go over later. But for now, you need to learn every single map. In Siege, there are a lot of maps, but if you're trying to rank up, you only need to learn these 16 ranked maps, so that eliminates a lot of maps that you don't have to learn. These maps are Villa, Theme Park, Skyscraper, Outback, Oregon, Canal, Cafe, Consulate, Coastline, Clubhouse, Chalet, Border, Bank, Emerald Plains, Nighthaven Labs, and the newest addition to the map pool, which is Lair. These are all the maps you have to memorize, which, to be fair, is a lot. Not only do you have to memorize all of these maps, but you have to memorize at least 3 bomb sites per map depending on the map. That's at bare minimum 48 bomb sites that you not only have to learn how to set up, but you also have to learn to attack. If you're setting up the bomb site, you have to learn all of the reinforcements for that bomb site, and you have to learn all of the rotates, the head holes, the feet holes, you have to learn which operators are best for that site, and all of that is just for one site. Again, you have to do that 48 different times, and that's if you're only doing 3 sites per map. There's some maps where you want to actually play around all 4 sites, which means you might have to do all of that 64 different times. So not only, like I said with Copper, is just putting in hours going to be your friend, but the best way that you can actually learn map knowledge is just by going into custom games and walking around the map. When you do this, you have a compass in the bottom of your screen. The fastest way that you can learn map knowledge other than just playing the game, though, is by going into the endless drill mode. If you have a map and you have no idea where the rooms are, how it works, how big it is, what it even looks like, go into an endless drill with that map. Here, you will have targets that you can shoot optionally, but also, anytime that you ping those targets, it will show exactly where the map is in the top left of your screen when the game tells you, hey, the targets are spawning here. You also have a compass in the bottom of your screen that tells you exactly what the room name is called, so not only are you learning the names of actual rooms, but because you're walking around the map endlessly, you'll learn the map eventually within like 5 to 10 minutes. And you only have to do that 16 times, so if you just learn a few maps a day, that's 30 minutes a day that you're spending for a few days to learn every single map. Also, you're learning all the callouts for the maps because you know all of the rooms for every map. You'll know what Armory on Border is. You'll know what IT on Nighthaven Labs is. You'll know what statue is on Emerald Plains. You'll know what CC is on bank. You'll just start learning callouts because you're running around an endless drill. If you want to get better map knowledge as well, I'd actually recommend just watching Pro League. There's a bunch of Pro League callouts that you can learn. They're really good at site setups as well, or attacking site setups, so you can learn a lot of map knowledge from them. But again, my biggest tip for bronze players is to start learning map knowledge, which again is one of the cornerstones of being able to play Siege correctly. Just like my next piece of advice for silver, which is another cornerstone for Siege, and that being mechanics. You need to get your mechanics up once you're in silver. This is where people actually start to kind of know the game a little bit, so being able to just out-aim people will be your best friend, especially if you don't have the game sense built up yet. This is very easy to do. First, just make sure you have all of your attachments down packed. Learning what every single barrel attachment does is very, very important, so you know exactly how to control recoil on every single gun. If you don't know what the recoil pattern is, there you go. It shows it in the bottom right there. You can also go into the shooting range and actually shoot the weapon, see how it feels, and change attachments accordingly. Play around with the different scopes. Are you better with the 1x scopes if you're on PC or the 8cogs if you're on console? Are you a better DMR player than you are an SMG player? Are you better with burst fire weapons like the SMG-11 and the F2 on Twitch, or are you better with full auto weapons like Sledge's AR? Not only are you learning exactly what attachments are run on every single weapon, but you're starting to learn what weapons you are good at. And once you're good at certain weapons and you play them regularly, you will get better aim because you're more in tune with how the gun works, how you're supposed to play around that gun, how the recoil works so you can control it. And that just makes it so much easier to be able to get out of silver. There's another tip that I can give you if you want to get your aim better as well, and that is consistently aiming head level. One thing that I see even champion people do in Champ Elo is aiming kneecap level, and I see this way too often. You need to be aiming head level. It's not very hard. All you have to do is barricade a doorway, and then unbarricade that doorway. The little buckles on the side of the doorway is head level, the little silver buckles. It's a pretty easy way to memorize head level, so you can go around barricading and unbarricading things, and now anytime that you want to hold your crosshair at a point, you know exactly where head level is for an easy headshot. You also, at this point, can start making your own warm-up routine. Are you really bad at flicking, but you're really good at tracking? Well, then you should have a flicking, tailor-made warm-up routine. For me, I'm pretty bad at tracking, but I'm really good at flicking, so I don't practice flicking that much in my warm-up routine. I just do tracking. That way I can work on the skills that I need to work on while still also warming up. You can also go into arcades once you're done warming up by yourself to be able to actually shoot real players, which will help you a lot, trust me. So being able to warm up, being able to learn all the attachments, all the guns, picking your own gun, whatever you're good at, will help you get out of silver. And once you're out of silver, you're on our next rank, which is gold. And my biggest piece of advice for anybody that is in gold is that you need to start playing operators that fit the meta. Once you're in gold, you're about average. This is where the most amount of people are, other than like high silver. Once you're average, so is usually your team and the enemy team as well, which means on average they're setting up site and they know how to attack site. So the only way to make things go in your favor is by playing operators that are meta, that maybe should probably need a nerf, that are busted, broken, whatever you want to call it. Operators that you know are going to give you an advantage, especially if you're going against a site setup that's default and you're doing an attack that's default. For instance, if you're setting up a bomb site in a way that you know the enemy knows how to attack, playing an operator like Azami to completely change up the dynamics of that site will give you a huge advantage. So again, my biggest advice to gold players is picking operators that you know will give you an advantage. For example, if Azami is on the board, you should be playing Azami every single round, or especially on maps that she is applicable. If Fenrir is on the board, pick up the Fenrir. On attack, if Ace is on the board, and there's a lot of hard breaching that needs to be done, pick up the Ace. Maybe you're a good Monty player. Play Monty every single round. Lord knows I do. But you get the idea. You should play operators that are specifically good for this meta, that are strong right now because of balancing changes, to give you an advantage, especially if it's just two default strats colliding into one. You want to be able to give yourself an advantage for absolutely free. So playing operators that are advantageous is going to be your best friend. Once you've done that though, you'll reach the next rank, which is Plat. My biggest advice for Plat players is to be able to focus every single time that you die on yourself. Now, I posted a YouTube video a few days ago talking about how every single time that you die, it is your fault. And even when you think it's your teammate's fault, there's still at least something that you can learn from when you died, and I had a lot of people get mad at me. But I still stand by that. I think if you die, 9 times out of 10, it is just your fault. Even if your teammates were the ones that got you killed, why were you in a position where your teammates' decisiveness was the reason that you lived or died? You should be able to be self-sufficient. You shouldn't have to rely on your teammates. Like, sure, your teammate not being able to bandit trick the wall correctly and opening a wall on the site might have sucked, but that shouldn't have been the reason you lost the round. You should be able to clutch that out, and if you were good enough, you would have. Here's the thing. People like Bolo, people like Spoit, people who are very, very good at the game, pro league players even, have times where their teammates get in their way, whether it be from killing them, from running in front of their bullets, whatever it may be. That happens. It's unavoidable. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that doesn't happen to people. But what I will say is anytime that those really good players are in really low ranks at the start of the season, they never are blaming their teammates for the reasons that they lose. Because guess what? They don't lose. If you were good enough, you wouldn't lose either, which means that if you are losing, there's still stuff that you can work on as a player. So stop blaming your teammates, because 9 times out of 10, as much as you don't want to admit it, every single time you die, it is completely your fault. And if you weren't dying and you were getting kills, you wouldn't be stuck in this rank in the first place. Once you are able to actually drop your ego, which I know is hard for plat players, you'll make it into the next rank, which is Emerald. Emerald is when you'll actually start to see a little bit of high level play, which is why my biggest piece of advice for Emerald is to be able to fit every single role in Siege. If you, up until this point, have just been playing a fragger, or just been playing hard support, or you've just been playing a flank watch / flex operator, you need to start branching out here. You need to start learning how to play hard support, you need to start learning how to play entry. I'm a champ player. I know how to play every single role, but if I hadn't learned how to play every single role, I would not have hit champ, and the same goes for any other champ player. Here's the reason why. Especially if you're solo queuing, when you get into a game, you don't know what your teammates are going to be good and what your teammates are going to be bad at. Let's say you queue into a game and you are a hard support player. All you know how to play is that thermite, that ace, that smoke, that cade, whatever it may be. You just love playing support. But when you load in, so do your solo queue teammates. Now that they've insta-locked everybody that you're maining, you don't know how to play entry for your team. You don't know how to play flex. You don't know how to play flank watch. You don't know how to play the Wamai, the Azami, the Fenrir, because you've just been playing the same operators over and over again, which is fine up until you hit Emerald. This is when you need to start branching out. If you've been playing hard support the entire time and someone takes your thermite, now's the time to start experimenting with Ash. Maybe start trying to play some gridlock for sight, some nomads for runouts, or some zero for flanks. You get the idea. Start branching out and trying different playstyles. You can play a different operator, but if you play that operator in the same exact playstyle, you're not going to get any usefulness out of that operator. So if you're going to play zero and you're going to actually branch out to a different operator, make sure that you're playing zero as zero is meant to be intended. I'll bring you back to this support example. If you've been hard playing thermite all game, that means you're probably droning in your teammates, you're sitting in the back, you're baiting a lot, you're maybe getting the bomb down using smoke grenades, whatever it may be. That's not what you should be doing on zero. On zero, you're a flex operator, which means you have to be flexing to exactly what your team needs. If your team needs flank watch because they didn't set off cutoff drones in the prep phase, then you need to be using your zero cameras as cutoff drones for your flank. If you need to entry because your entries died in the beginning, use your cameras to get info so you can entry with one of the best weapons in the game, which zero has. If you just need a hard support, bring hard breaching charges. You can use your tasers to be able to get things off the wall. You can breach it with your hard breaching charges. So you can do anything that you need to do with zero. He's a flex operator, right? So you need to be playing operators based off their role. Zero, you can play whatever your team needs. Thermite, you play hard support. Ash, you play entry. You just need to make sure that you're actually playing operators where you're supposed to be intended, so that if your team needs a specific role because they insta-lock support, now you know how to play entry, so you can just play entry for your team. That's what I do. I'll wait for all of my team to pick their operators, and whatever I think we need, I'll play. For example, if they pick all 4 operators, we don't have a hard breach, I'll just play the hard breach. If they pick all 4 operators, they have a bunch of hard breach, they have smoke grenades, they have a Thatcher, but they don't have an entry, I'll play the entry. If they play everything that we need, but they don't have flank watch, they don't have a flex operator, or smoke grenades, or a shield player, whatever it may be, I'll play that. And that is why my biggest tip to Emerald players is to be able to branch out and learn every single role that there is in the game so that you can start filling what your team needs, because that can be the difference between you winning and losing. Assuming that you've been winning for long enough, that should bring you into the next rank, which is Diamond. My biggest rank for Diamond players is to actually make your own solo queue strategies. I have hundreds of solo queue strategies just on this channel alone that you can look from, and in those videos I make those solo queue strats within like 5 minutes. I don't even like really try that hard. It's very easy to do. So all you have to do is go into a custom game, look at a site that's typically set up a certain way, and think, how can I change this and benefit from it in a way that won't affect my team, but I can do it by myself, right? So for example, maybe instead of putting the default holes there, don't put holes there. Maybe reinforce it and electrify it. Or maybe instead of leaving a wall that's normally soft, you put feed holes on it, and then you play off of those feed holes with alibi clones or observation blockers or a mute jammer. Or maybe you make your own castle strats that extend the bomb site into 2 extra rooms. Like you make a castle strat for bathroom on border that extends into workshop, right? Like just start making up your own solo queue strats, because that actually will help you understand the game on a fundamental level way more than any other tip on this list. Being able to actually make your own strategies will not only help you get a better understanding of the game and how it works and where attackers push and where the defenders defend, but it also will make you better at the operators that you're using to make the solo queue strats with. For example, I love making solo queue strats with Castle. It's very fun to do with Castle, and I have become an outstanding Castle player because of it. The same thing with Echo. I love making Echo camera lineups, so now every single map I have tons of Echo cam lineups that are really, really nice. You can do this too with any operator that you want. Another hugely added benefit to making your own solo queue strats is that they aren't in the meta. Everybody that sets up site sets it up in a way that Pro League set it up beforehand, meaning that if you just watch Pro League, you'll know how the majority of the time people will set up the site. If you make up your own solo queue strats, typically then you're also setting up the site, or at least near the site, completely differently. So people won't know how to attack it, or if you're on attack, people won't know how to defend against your strats because they're not what they're used to going against. So it adds the benefit of being unpredictable and being something that they don't know exists, which means you will catch them off guard, especially if it's a really weird and unorthodox strategy. And with people in Diamond playing nothing but the meta, like I talked about earlier, you making your own solo queue strats to counter the meta or just to be different will actually win you a lot of games. And once you've won all of those games, you will be in the final and best rank of Siege and in this video, which is Champion. And my best tip that I could give, my best honest advice that I could give Champion players is to start playing competitive. Go into the R6 Discord, look for a team, maybe look for a team on Twitter, whatever it may be. Just try to find a team and do scrims with them just a few times a week. There's a few teams that are doing scrims like 6 times a week. That is way too much. Any pro team will tell you that. You can get away with scrimming just 3 times a week, 2 times a week with 2 map scrims every single time and be fine. But playing competitive will not only teach you the meta of how ranked is supposed to be played, but it'll teach you the meta of how even better people are playing. And the best way to improve is to be going against people that are better than you and playing with people that are better than you. And if you're in Champion, chances are not a lot of people are better than you, so you're not going to be learning a lot. But if you're constantly surrounded by people that are hungry to learn just like you, which is exactly what the competitive scene is for, then you will have a much more fun time and much more actually learning experience time than you would just playing ranked. Not only this, but in Champ, there are cheaters every single game. I played on an alt when my head in MMR was Champ, and I averaged 4 cheaters per game. Trust me, I get it. So playing competitive almost completely eliminates the cheater issue because people have to get verified through third-party software that you're forced to download to participate in some of these tournaments, which makes it 30 times harder for people to cheat. So not only are you just getting better and playing with more competitive people and also not going against cheaters, but an added benefit of playing competitive is it's just 30 times more fun than playing ranked. When you're playing competitive, people have default setup strats, people have default attacks, you're giving more comp, it's more of a team-based game. It just feels more fun and what Siege should have been like. Ranked just feels like you put maybe a thing of utility or down or 2 and it's just like a deathmatch the rest of the time. People are just shooting each other. It's really, really unfun. But if you're playing competitive, people are actually trying. There's strategy involved. It's like an actual chess match. It's fun. So if you're Champ, my best advice that I can give you, honestly, is to start playing competitive. Or at least start watching competitive players so that you can get better. But with that out of the way, my name's Alka. Check out this next video, and I hope we'll see you there. Later.